Hello, friends. It is me, Mr. Sloufaki. Today I think that it's fun to do a story time about one of my favorite movies. My children like to watch a Princess Bride movie, so I decide I tell them the story of Princess Bride, so they do not have to watch full movie. Fun fact, if you have not watched a movie yet and you still want to, I might spoil some things for you. I try to tell the story as best I can from my memory, but I also may not do a good job, so up to you to pick. So, if you don't want to hear, click away now and come back at another time. Princess Bride story start with little boy in his bed. I do not know his name, so we would call him Fred. He laying in bed very sick, he coughing. He also might be faking so he can get out of school. Hard to tell. So Fred's grandfather come over to watch him and he say, "Oh, little boy, I got a story to tell you." And Fred is like, "Oh, is this a boring story, Grandpa?" And Grandpa's like, "Oh, well, I used to tell your dad all the time." So Fred is like, "Okay, let me listen to your story." So story starts with a girl named Buttercup and a man named Wesley. And I think they like each other because they always make googly eyes at each other whenever they see each other. So Buttercup asks Wesley to help her with things, and he always say, "As you wish." And so she asks him to do lots of chores and pick up heavy things, and he always just say, "As you wish." So one day, they decide, "Oh, we are in love," and they make a smooch. And the Wesley man decide, "Well, we live in little village, so I need to go off and make some money so we can get married." And Buttercup are like, "Please, don't go." He's like, "No, I must. It's my job. I make lots of money." So he leave. Pretty instant, he get killed by pirates. He dead. So Buttercup is like, "Oh, I'm so sad forever. I'm so sad. I will never be happy again." And she cry all the time. Until one day, Grumpy King come along and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to marry pretty lady in village." And Buttercup's like, "Please don't be me." And King's like, "Well, you are very pretty, so I marry you." And he take her back to the castle. So Buttercup's still sad all the time, even though she's a princess. She does not want to marry Grumpy King. She wants to marry Wesley. But he dead because he got killed by pirates. So Buttercup sometime ride her horse, and that's the one thing that make her happy. And so she ride her horse in woods when she see three strange men. And they're like, "Oh, stop your horse." And she's like, "Why? What's going on?" And little sneaky bald man, part of group, he say, "We are going to kidnap you." And she's like, "But I do not want to be kidnapped." He's like, "Too bad, get on our boat." So Sneaky Man have a big giant friend. He's like 20 feet tall. He's named Fonzie. And they also have very smooth talking sword man. His name's Indigo Toyota. So they get the princess on the boat, and Sneaky Man's like, "We are going to kill you and start a war and make lots of money." And she's like, "But I do not want to die." And he's like, "Too bad." So they sail off on their boat, and while they're on the boat at night, they're like, "We better be careful around here for the yelling eels." And in the distance, of course, they hear, "Ah, it's the eels." They are screaming. So the princess decide, well, I either get died by these people or I jump in water and swim for it. So she tried to sploosh into the water, and Sneaky Man's like, "Well, now we're not going to be able to kill the princess ourselves." So as a giant eel come to try to eat princess, big giant man, he bonk a eel on the head with a piece of wood and pick princess back up in the boat. And he says, "You should not have done that. It is not safe in the water." But for some reason, big man also have to rhyme whenever he talk. So he be like, "I can rhyme all the time." And Indigo's like, "You do a good job at that." So as they are sailing, they notice the boat behind them, and they're like, that is very suspicious. But they keep going, and as they keep going, boat keep getting closer and closer. So they say, Sneaky Man say, "Wow, if we make it to the cliffs of insanity, he'll never be able to follow us." So they make it to the cliffs, and they tell Big Man, "Climb us up the rope to the top, because you are very strong, and we are very weak, and you climb very good." So as they're climbing rope, they see that it is a masked man who climbing up behind them. So Sneaky Man say to Sword Man, "You better stay here and make sure you get rid of him." So Indigo Toyota is like, "Okay, I will get rid of him." So Masked Man make it to top of rope, and for some reason Indigo's like, "How many fingers you got?" And the Masked Man's like, "A normal amount of fingers." He goes, "Oh, okay," said Indigo, "I'm looking for a man with 6 fingers." And Masked Man like, "Well, I only have 5 on both my hands, so we should do a sword fight because I need to capture the princess." And Indigo's like, "Oh, well, I'm very good at swords." So they have a sword fight. Ching, ching, ching. Their swords always crashing on top of each other. Until finally Masked Man beat Indigo. And Indigo's like, "Oh, you must kill me because you are a better sword man." And Masked Man go, "Nope," and just bonk him on head and knock him out. So next we see the Giant Man and the little Sneaky Man. Sneaky Man go, "Oh, I think a Masked Man get away from our friend Indigo. You stay here and bonk him with a rock when he come by." So the Giant Man go, "Okay, boss, I bonk him with a rock." So Masked Man, he keep coming and he come up to Giant Man, and Giant Man is like, "I'm supposed to bonk you with a rock, but that not be very nice." He does not have to rhyme at this point anymore. I just want to point that out. So as we continue, the Masked Man is like, "Well, I need to go by." And Giant Man's like, "Well, you cannot, so we should probably fight each other." So because Giant Man is professional wrestler, they have a big wrestling match. But Masked Man, he is very smart, and he jump on his back and make him go to sleep. Now, meanwhile, we find out that the party is being followed by the Grumpy King. So everywhere they go, the Grumpy King is like, "There have been people here." And his Beard Man friend's like, "Yes, that is true." So they keep going, and Masked Man finally make it to top of hill where Sneaky Man is waiting for him with a nice lunch. But Sneaky Man's like, "Oh, I challenge you to a game of poison drinks." And Masked Man like, "Okay, well, how we play?" And Sneaky Man's like, "Well, you put poison in drink, I figure out where poison is, and then we drink." And the Masked Man like, "Oh, okay, that seemed pretty easy." So he put poison in drink, and then Masked Man take a long time to pick, "Well, maybe you put poison in my drink, maybe you put it in your drink because you're strong, but you think I'm very stupid, but I'm actually smart, and you should not mess with me when the poison's about here." So they finally decide who's going to drink which drink after much discussion, and poof, Zucchini die. And so Princess Buttercup is like, "How'd you do that?" And Masked Man's like, "Oh, I drink poison all the time, not a big deal." So just a quick brief word of warning. Any children out there who are watching, never drink poison. It's very dangerous. It will kill you. But as we continue, Masked Man like, "Okay, well now I captured you. So come on, Princess Buttercup." And Buttercup's like, "Oh my gosh, I get kidnapped all the time recently. Not sure why." So as they are walking, Buttercup's still very sad, and Masked Man say, "Well, I bet you did not know. I am a pirate Roberts. I killed your boyfriend." And she's like, "Oh, why did you kill my boyfriend? I love him so much." And Masked Man like, "Oh, love him so much you married King?" And she's like, "I never married King. I do not love him at all." And so Masked Man rip off his mask, and he like, "Surprise, it's me, Wesley." And they're like, "Oh my goodness. Oh, we still love each other." But then in the distance, they see a Grumpy King. So the Grumpy King continued to follow them. They're like, "Quick, roll down this hill real fast." So they fall down a hill, thump, de bumped, and they go into the spooky forest of fire swamps. And the king's like, "Oh, shoot, we cannot follow them into there." So they go into the fire swamp, and Princess apparently not pay attention at all because she immediately step in fire. And Wesley's like, "Oh my God, do you even not pay attention here? It's fire swamp. You have to put her out." He goes, "Also be careful because there's like a big animals, a big squirrel or something." And so, of course, Bite the Squirrel come out, and he's like, "Chomp, chomp, chomp," and try to bite the princess. And Wesley's like, "I always have to save you." And so he fight off the giant squirrel. And so Princess like, oh, and she falls into quicksand because that's what she do. She always gets in trouble all of a sudden. So Wesley jump into quicksand. He saved her from that. And finally, they make it out the fire swamp. But what did they find? Surprise, it's the king. He take a shortcut. And Wesley's like, shoot, we should have taken a shortcut. But Buttercup's like, please do not kill this man. I would go with you if you keep him safe. So the king's like, oh yeah, I keep him safe. And he look at his beard buddy and like, do not keep him safe. So they take Buttercup back to castle. And Wesley end up going to what's called Pit of Despair. So Buttercup's like, I do not still want to marry you, king. I want to marry my Wesley. And he's like, okay, fine. I send emails to all my cousin. They find you, Wesley. If he really love you, he come back. Now we as audience know he not going to come back because he is in Pit of Despair. So he is in Pit of Despair, and there's this creepy man in the basement who is wiping his injuries like, oh, I must give you a bath before we kill you. And then he, sorry, I don't really talk like that. But so they're in Pit of Despair, and Beard Man come down. He goes, we are going to drain all your life from you. And Wesley do not like it, hurt him very much. He finally die. So they're like, okay, and they just yeet him into the woods somewhere. So, lo and behold, Giant Man, Fonzie, and his friend Indigo find the dead Wesley. They're like, oh, he dead, but maybe we have Miracle. We take him to Miracle Max. So they take him to Old Man in Woods, and Old Man in Woods is like, oh, he's not totally dead. He's only part of the way dead. I can fix that. So he do some hoodoo, mumbo jumbo, and poof, Wesley back to life. And so Wesley's like, I must save Princess Buttercup. And Indigo is like, we will come with you. And Giant Man like, we will come with you because it is our duty. So they go off, and the old man's like, have fun with the castle. Good luck. Kill the king. And so Wesley is like, okay, that sounds good. So they sneak up to castle, and a man who is obsessed with fingers and Giant Man, they break into castle. So they rush around trying to find Princess Buttercup, who at this point, she also wants to drink poison and is like, I do not want to marry you, I want to drink poison. And the king is like, well, I hope you don't do that because I really want to get married. And I know I'm only pretty evil, but not all the way evil. And she's like, no, poison for me. And so she getting ready, but finally Wesley burst in. And he decide to fight the king. And also, at the same time, Indigo find Beardo, and turns out he have 6 fingers. What surprise! He is the man who killed Indigo's father. So they have a sword fight, and the whole time Indigo's yelling, you have 6 fingers! You have 6 fingers! And apparently, it's also important to note that this man who have 6 fingers killed Toyota's mother. Or father, or maybe his uncle, somebody. So he yelled the whole time, you killed my family, prepare to die, you have so many fingers, I cannot let you live. Meanwhile, back with King and Buttercup and Wesley fight off the king, and maybe King dead, I don't remember that part, but they escape. And also, Indigo, he kill Beard Man, and say, ha ha, now I have avenged my uncle. And so they all hop on horses and ride away. And meanwhile, we didn't talk about Boy much because he's not like super important to the story. The boy is like, oh, Grandpa, that's actually a pretty good story. And Grandpa's like, well, hold on 1 second. He say, of all the kisses in the world, people do many kisses, smooch, smooch. Wesley and Buttercup, they love each other so much, they do best smooch of all time. So the boy's like, well, I'm not really a big fan of smooches, but the sword fight was pretty cool. So that is the end of the Princess Bride movie, and I think it's very good. My children think it's also a very good movie. And if you think that I do a even adequate job telling about the Princess Bride, make sure you give a smooch a thumb up button. And you can also subscribe. I can maybe tell more stories. I also do things to make a kid smarter. Also, I get smarter myself. So feel free to come back anytime and tell your story. Goodbye, friends. Goodbye. Bye. Goodbye.